And yeah, we're live. Hello and welcome to our live session. Thank you for joining us today. A quick reminder, we do these live streams every Thursday at 4 p.m. Central European Time or 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. If you have any questions, we are live, so you can ask us any questions during this session and we'll try our best to answer them live. Today with me, I have Navid Ardakanian. I don't want to butcher your surname. Is it correct?
That was very good. That was very good. Thank you.
Thanks. I'm really looking forward to today's talk. First of all, how are you, Navid?
Good. Thank you so much, Robert, for the invite. Very happy to be here. Very happy to have this conversation and very excited and I'm feeling good. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I know I talk for the listeners. I talk about meetups almost on every podcast, on every episode we have. Yeah, but I'd like to highlight the importance of meetups. I met Navid, in fact, at the Amsterdam meetup. It's such meetups are so good to meet people, to learn, to exchange ideas. In fact, we met earlier on
Exactly.
this year because Navid did a presentation about what he's going to talk to us about today, basically. And
Yes.
yeah, so we kept in touch, of course, we kept talking. So yeah, meetups are very good. So
I
yeah,
agree.
let's start. Yeah, like, can you give us a brief introduction about you, basically?
Absolutely. Yeah, my name is Navid. I live in Amsterdam. I've been living here for almost 6.5 years. I'm originally Iranian. Currently, my day job is I'm a global innovation manager at a very large energy company. I One of the main things that I lead there is actually AI adoption and AI literacy, especially since this year. Before that, I was mostly focused on collaborating with startups and bringing startups in to our company, an open innovation, basically, operations. But before that, for most of my life, I've been an entrepreneur. I've had multiple companies in different industries, from 3D printing, manufacturing, food, and everything else. So I'm a generalist. I enjoy building things. I enjoy making things. That's what gives me energy. And that's kind of how we ended up here, and with the story of this plugin, which started almost a year
Yeah,
ago. But that's a little bit about myself. I'm married. I live with my wife, who's from the other side of the world. She's from Colombia. So yeah, uh,
interesting.
there you go.
Thank you for the detailed introduction. Yeah, what brought you here is actually a plugin called AI Workflow Automation plugin for WordPress. Before we dive into the subject, but can you tell us a bit about the plugin and what does it do?
Absolutely. So, in very short, this plugin provides you, the owner of the website, with a very visual, very easy to use, very intuitive kind of UI for you to implement almost any sort of AI operation on your site. So this could be anything from automating answering to comments, creating posts and creating content, I don't know, reviewing things on your site, even creating chatbots that have capabilities to do things. So the idea was to enable people who are not technical to use this very, very intuitive system to create very complex kind of workflows that embed AI on an already existing website. So you don't need to think about, oh, now I need to do a lot of API connections. Now I need to do this. Now I need to do that. Step by step, how am I going to do it? No, everything is in one place. You can just do everything at the same time. That was the idea of the plugin.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And as you said, the most interesting part, which one of the reasons, of course, why we have you here, is that, as you said, you are a generalist, you are not a developer, but you develop this plugin. So let's start with the first one. Like, is there any specific reason why you chose to work with PHP and WordPress and not something else, for example?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I definitely I didn't choose PHP. PHP comes as a package with WordPress. So if you want to work
Oh,
on
okay,
WordPress,
well,
you need to do that, right? So,
exactly.
but why WordPress is a very good question. There are two sides to the answer. There's one personal side for me, and I would say there's a technical side to it. The personal side for me is this. A year ago, almost exactly a year ago, when I started working on this plugin, I had a lot of ideas on websites that are AI powered, right? So your user comes to a website, they, for example, upload a file, you do something for them, you provide back a service, right? And and you can do a lot of these things, right? So you can receive an image, edit it, and give it back to your user. They can send you a text, and you can improve the text and send it back to the user. There's all kinds of services now going on. And these are very good. If you create a valuable service, you have the opportunity to also monetize it later, right? I had a lot of ideas, and I thought, okay, I should probably kick off some of these ideas. I was so interested and so excited. I was like, I'm going to create some of these ideas. The problem was that the only thing I know how to do is to make websites with WordPress on a rather basic level, right? So work with a few plugins, put together a few pages and posts, and then get it working. The problem was that when I did that, I did a little bit of search of, okay, how am I going to integrate AI with my WordPress site? Like, okay, people fulfill in a form. How am I going to process the form input with AI in multiple steps, right? It's not just a one-go thing. I wanted to read this, then analyze it, then do some research, then reform it. How am I going to create this with WordPress? Honestly, there was nothing. There was nothing. I did a lot of search. There are, of course, solutions like make.com, like Na10, and if you want to work with those, and I do work with those a lot, but those are not integrated in WordPress. You still need to create like this, okay, I connect this, and now sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it doesn't work the way I want. It's not local to WordPress. Still, your data is flying around between multiple services. That was what gave me the idea to kind of, okay, what if there is something like that built into WordPress, so I don't need to go around? But then the technical side of why WordPress makes a lot of sense is that all these AI automation tools that are now kind of on the rise, the most famous one almost is Na10, but then there's Lindy, there's UiPath, there's more enterprise versions, there's a less enterprise versions of these tools. They are all middleware. If you use Na10, you need to figure out what is going to be your backend and what is going to be your front end. Like, what are you going to do with this output? Okay, you do a lot of process on your AI, or you have a chatbot that is agentic on Na10. Then what? Like, where is this chatbot going to live, right? And the same thing with the backend. Where am I going to save all the data? The interesting thing is that WordPress is already a built-in front end and a backend. Now, if you put the middleware in there, suddenly you have the whole package. You have the backend that's already there. You have the front end. You can already host your outputs, your chat, your whatever, and you have the middleware that you can create like very complex automations. That was kind of the technical side of it, that it suddenly clicked that, okay, no, it actually makes very good technical sense to create something like this. Yeah. That was the story. Yeah.
Interesting. So and then obviously you're not a developer, so you started using AI to develop the plugin. Can you walk us through the process of how you went basically from an idea to a working plugin using AI as your development partner, basically?
Yeah. So I will tell you a little bit about the beginning part of it, because that's the hard part, kind of. That's the difficult part. You need to figure out what you're doing. Because of what I do on my job and because of my own interest in AI and everything else, last year I already knew that this is, if I want to take it as a one-shot approach, okay, make this thing for me, this is not going to work. And we're talking about a year ago. When I started, it was the time that I think a week before that, Claude Sonnet 3 just came out. That was kind of the big leap forward in coding with AI. Cursor didn't exist. Lovable didn't exist. None of those kind of tools that nowadays exist for vibe coding and creating things did not really exist. So there was no real framework around it. And my approach was actually, what I did was sort of what we do in the innovation process with companies, is to, okay, let's try a few things. So I created a very simple prompt of, okay, this is my idea. I want you to help me create this plugin that does X, Y, and Z. Like, that was very basic prompt. And I bought a ChatGPT account, I bought a Claude account, and I bought a Gemini account that just came out. I think it was still not even Gemini, it was Gemma, only the models that were available. And I pasted to all of them, and I just saw what they're going to come out with, right? So what would be the output? Back then, Google really was bad, so it didn't do anything. ChatGPT immediately started typing code, and I got very excited that, oh yeah, look,
That's nice.
it's already making code for me, like it's gonna work. It's already created PHP code. Claude did not create any PHP. Bit kind of analyzing the situation and saying that, okay, this it requires these kind of files and this kind of structure in the front end and probably a back end and everything else. I went ahead with the ChatGPT one. I kind of copied the code into a file, a PHP file. I kind of zip it, I put it on a WordPress, and it kind of loaded a plugin. And it was very exciting that it actually generated a plugin that loaded up. But in the end, it didn't do anything. It was all like a very bad imitation of something. It was not working, and I kind of played with it for 1 or 2 days. It still didn't work. Whatever I did, it didn't really generate anything. I was like, okay, no, I either have to start from the beginning or this doesn't work. With the Claude one, the approach was very different. So it said, okay, this is the structure. We need to have a front end that probably uses this and this and this technology, because we're talking about visual and connecting. And so this is not normal PHP. We're talking about a backend that needs to kind of have a system to manage workflows, execute them, etc., etc. And then we need to somehow connect all of this together, REST APIs and everything else. There was kind of the for me to understand, okay, now it's going to take time. I need to take a step-by-step approach. I started there with a very, very basic kind of one file backend in the beginning. Like there was one file on the backend, there was 1 or 2 or 3 files on the front end, very basic version. But then suddenly something very meaningful came up, right? So now it was an actual visual system where I could connect lines to each other, where I actually got, in 4 days or 5 days, I got the first workflow to be executed. Which was like, I gave it an input, it went through an AI model for some processing, it provided some output. It was that basic, but it was already like a proof that this can work. Actually, this is gonna work. And from there, that was kind of my starting point. And then as I was going forward, I started learning how to deal with this. So I always say I am still not a programmer, but nowadays I'm a very, very, very good product manager. I know every single almost line of code in every single class or method or file that I have, because I have read it, I have understood it, I know what it does, I know why it is there, and I know how it interacts with the other systems, right? So that's kind of something that I started learning as I was going forward. I started learning, so why is it not doing what I wanted to do? How does this code work? What is it supposed to do? What is it actually doing? So kind of that was an iterative process that I went through. And then it took me, I think it was in the end 3 months or so until I got to the first, I would say, version 0, the first working thing that had essence to it, that you could actually put some nodes together and it would generate a content, for example, very well. And then from there, I always say the kind of the core of the system was built. And then from then on, everything else that has been added since then is an add-on on the core of the system, because the core of the system was built very well from the get-go. There is a very, very strong logic on how a workflow should be executed. There's a very strong modularity to the front end and to the back end. So when I add something, I don't need to change all. It is very contained in one module. So these are like Lego blocks connecting to each other. And from then it just got sped up a lot. But the difficult part was the first few months for me to get to the starting point with something that actually works.
Yeah, in fact, I was going to say that is something very admirable, to stick for 3 months. Something's not working and trying to get somehow some sort of MVP, minimum viable product that produces something, even if it's broken, but at least produce something.
Yeah.
It's also fascinating that back then, I don't know about today, but Claude was the only one, it seems, that gave you a source of context. Okay, it's not just one PHP file, because usually small plugins are just one PHP file, but plugins, as you grow as a product, you have different classes, different stuff, the structure. Classes go here, maybe you have third-party vendors, libraries, you have a different structure for everything. So very interesting. So so nowadays, as you said, you have different, it's not just a one file project, so it's a very big project. So how does the workflow look in practice? So like you're prompting in line by line. How do you work with AI to build this project roughly?
It has changed a lot, right? So I will tell you how it looked like and how it looks like right now, because there are two different things. And I think there is a danger for anyone watching this that are interested in doing this themselves. I would kind of put a sign, a danger sign of how not to do things, right? So exactly how not to do things, right? It from the beginning until very, very recently, it was pretty manual work, right? So I mean, how much can you call AI work manual work, right? It was pretty manual work in the sense that I always say your role in development with AI, you are the architect. So you should have the mindset of an engineer. If you don't have engineering mindset, you're not going to be successful in developing whatever you are developing. If you cannot imagine how systems are going to work together on a high level, on an engineering level, not on the detailed level, regardless of how much capability your AI tool has, it is not going to fix it for you, because at least not in this. Maybe in a year from now, when we watch this, we will laugh and we will say, okay, now the AI will do everything for you. But in the current iteration of AI that we have, AI models are not able to architect a solution for you. They will stick things that are somehow not cohesive and not coherent with each other, and it doesn't make sense. So my workflow from in the beginning until very recently looked like this. I come up with an idea of a feature, let's say, right? So now I need to develop a feature. It was always me with a Claude web UI open, and I would say I am going to develop. And Claude has like a kind of my project with all the files, so it kind of understands the context of it. A few months ago, you couldn't even upload all the files, because right now the plugin is it's huge. It's over 100,000 lines. I think it's 120,000 lines of code right now.
Okay,
so it can you cannot feed all of that as project knowledge back then. So what I would do is that I would feed a few files that were relevant to that feature that I was making as context of the project. And I would say, okay, I want to add a feature that is images, right? I want the system very, very cleanly, like a product manager, right? So you give a very clear brief. I want you to work with the API from this system, get the models, do this, call this API, create this file, etc., right? And then the first question is, I want you to first think and kind of analyze how you should implement this step by step. And then it does an analysis. It says, these are the features we need. These are the details we want to work on. These are the steps of the flow, etc., etc. And then if I approve, then always for me the process was, the first step is to start with the front end modules. So we develop the front end the way it should look like, and based on how the front end looks like, then we start working on the back end, right? So how all of these front end stuff are going to talk to our back end and to the core system that we have. Then that's kind of the second phase. And then there was always a third phase of, okay, let's review the code. And then there's a fourth for testing, just to make sure it works. And then there's also always a last phase, which is security. So we do now a round of security check. This is all manual. A round of security check, and everything passes the security check, then this thing is done, right? For a very small feature, this will happen all in one day, in a few hours. And for more complex features, this was sometimes 2 weeks of work, right? That you need to test and things don't work, and you need to test and things don't work. I can just very quickly maybe even show you how my Claude project looks like.
Definitely.
This is actually kind of the oldest Claude project that I have. You'll see here. This is how my Claude. I still use it, although my workflow has changed, right? But you can see here. These are all my files, right? So there's a lot of files, as you can see. These are all the files from the plugin. These are the plugin has this many files, right? So these are all the files from the plugin, back end and front end. These are the chats that I have, and I still sometimes come to, you see, I don't use it that much anymore. Like 8 days ago, like I used it today a little bit. But is it still that for example, sometimes when I don't understand the part of the code, why there's a bug, I come and ask, like, can you find the bug in this code, because I cannot see it, and it kind of identifies it. I still enjoy the manual approach of this work, and it is very controllable. right? So it is beyond, it is not beyond my understanding, because every time it answers something to me, I read it, I analyze it in my own head, and if I agree with the approach, then I copy the code where it should be copied. That kind of gives me that edge that I told you, that I know every single line of code in the plugin code base. I know it. But recently, of course, for me, this has changed. And this is the kind of the flag that I want to say. So for anyone who wants to start developing with AI on a serious level, I would say this is how you should go forward. A lot of people right now think that they can skip this and go straight to Cursor, go straight to Replit, go straight to Lovable, go straight to one of these kind of tools that generate code on the fly for you without you understanding what it is doing, and go forward. And that's where you create what a lot of people call, what I agree with them, AI slop. It's an unmaintainable, ununderstandable, you don't know what is what, where is the code, where does it come from, why is it there? You don't understand, because the AI is just continuously generating, scrutinize the code. That's the dangerous part, but that's how my current development cycle looks like. So nowadays I rely heavily on Cloud Code. So I use Cloud Code a lot on my system. I don't go back and forth between the manual work anymore, because I trust the system. I know that there is a core system that is the underlying structure. Even that, and I will show you that right now, even with that, my Cloud Code has a lot of detailed instructions on where things are, how the code should be written, what is the process. There are sub-agents to the actual agent. There is a PHP sub-agent, there is a React sub-agent, there is a security sub-agent, right? And then every time I am developing a feature using these sub-agents talk to each other, right? So that the PHP developer develops something, the React developer develops something, the security agent checks this for security issues for that code. So it's kind of the same process that I was doing manually before. Now they are doing it. But funny enough, even with this system that I have tried so hard to make it as faultless and as fast as possible, the rate of mistake is much higher than when I was doing it manually. It's much higher. There is much more misses than hits when you leave it to AI to develop. Much higher rate of misses than hits. And I think that's where this stigma around AI code is not trustable comes from, because a lot of people see it as this. But the reality is, if you use it like this, like leave the coding completely blindly to AI for you to do it, it's not as you don't understand. It doesn't understand. You don't understand what is happening. At least again in this current iteration that we're in. I can just very quickly show you a few things,
Sure,
maybe in how my stack on VS Code looks like. Let me see. VS Code. So this is how VS Code looks like. I mean, it's a vertical monitor for you to see more things. But this is the, so here you see this is Claude, right? It's open. I can chat with it right now. I don't know. Have you used the Claude Code, Robert, in your work?
I've used it a bit for an experiment. I never used it.
Exactly. So, for example, this is Claude Code. I will tell you how it works and what it does. But for example, you can see that I have my Claude.md, which is the main Claude kind of file. It is still very, very detailed, right? So very detailed. I have given it like, what scripts do we have? What script do we use for what? There are multiple different scripts. We have like development, test development, generating the zip files, only building the front end, only doing the back end, deploy it or not, and then kind of an explanation of some of the main kind of core methods that we have is in there. We talk about here, I want to show you, so the front end, let me show you some maybe inside. So here, for example, we have the backend testing for you to know regarding, for example, security. I now have a fully automated security test with PHP CS with WordPress on it, with WordPress plugin on it, and also PSAM. So every code before it is it gets checked through PHP CS for the best practices for WordPress. PSALM for vulnerabilities, complete taint analysis. It kind of creates a list of bugs, potential bugs that it identifies. Then it creates a task for itself to, okay, now I need to kind of fix all of that. So it goes through this whole cycle by itself, kind of autonomously. I just monitor it. Yeah, and that's how it looks like right now. But if I wanted to start right now with this, I will have never gotten to an actual working product.
So, is it fair to say that basically you have to literally spoon feed the AI? It's not just.
Absolutely. It's just that not that necessarily you have to spoon feed the AI, but as I said, you need to be comfortable taking the driver's seat. You are the driver beyond prompting. It's not that you are the driver to give good prompts. It's not about prompting. You are the driver in designing the system of whatever you are building. You should have a very clear mental image in the beginning. If you are technical, draw it, create like a flow chart for yourself. But you should have a very clear mental image of how this architecture looks like. And then spoon feed the architecture with the broken down pieces of work that you want to do to the AI. Otherwise, it goes everywhere. These things are not trying to converge to something. They're just always diverging.
Interesting. And except from the budget, which is obvious, uh, how much faster do you think you'd have been if you doing this via AI versus having a team of 5 people, a PHP developer, a security?
Not even comparable. Not even comparable, Robert. Like I don't think you can compare it, to be honest. Let me give you the context of this. So the AI workflow automation as a plugin, it has almost the same feature set in terms of the core features as n8n has, or as a lot of current startups have in terms of the automation systems that they provide, right? n8n started in 2019 and they have tens of employees. And of course, it's a way more serious product. They have a lot of support to do. They have a lot of sales teams and everything else. But from their point of view, starting to what they have, back then AI didn't exist and they had to write it down. It took them years to get to the AI automation platform that they are right now. And for me, one person, afternoons and evenings I spent on this. Although I'm a little bit sticky, I stay late and I'm like kind of lock into this and I do it and I love it. But it is one person, and I spend time. I service my clients, like when they reach out for help. I do that. I fix bugs. I release new versions. I have a kind of a release cadence of every 2 weeks. So every 2 weeks, a sort of a major release is released with updates to features, not only bug fixes, right? So I do all of these in my free time. I still go out and I still have fun and everything else, right? So that kind of gives you of how much you can do with these things if you have like your proper setup and everything.
Yeah, I was going to say, in fact, in terms of hours for you, I mean, as you said, you still have a full-time job. It's still a hobby for you. It's
Yeah.
not something that's consuming 8, 9, 10 hours a day, right? I mean,
Yeah. Sometimes in weekends I spend more time on this. Of course, like that's my weekend, and I have nothing else to do, and I actually love it. I go full in on like a hard feature that I have been developing for a long time. But usually it's a few hours per day. Yeah.
You said, of course, you are familiar with all the lines of code and stuff like. So you are familiar with the whole project and stuff like that. And most of the new features are quite easy to implement because you're just building blocks on top of the core. But let's say you need to add a new feature, or within a few months something will change in WordPress, and you need to update the core of your plugin.
Yeah.
How difficult would it be, and how would you go about it?
I don't think it would be that difficult because even the core of the plugin is pretty modular, right? So the logic behind how it works. So the core of my plugin are three main things. There is a workflow execution logic, there is a node execution logic, and there is a kind of the whole REST API system that connects the front end and the back end. Like these are the main things that kind of runs the plugin, right? These things themselves are pretty modular, right? And I have actually upgraded them, let's say, in time as time goes by. in these previous months that I'm releasing, I'm constantly kind of improving it for performance and for everything else. So I don't foresee something like this changes that I need to change the core of the plugin, because the logic of executing a workflow, that how to follow the nodes and what is the logic and everything, like how do you decide which kind of flow to follow and everything. And I will show you a few workflows, maybe that's also interesting, how to kind of follow the lines and everything. That logic is not going to change, right? So that's the kind of the basis. But even if that wants to change, it is very maintainable. As I said, I have done it multiple times. When the plugin was first released, there was no option to have like branching workflows. So you couldn't, it was more linear, like you go in a line. And then at one point I had to add like a branch, right? So maybe you add a condition, maybe you want to have two things happening at the same time. That was another kind of logic that got added on top of the core logic of the system.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, how you said like even testing is automated? How do you ensure? Is it like partially automated?
Yeah.
How do you? Yeah, like it's partially automated, but how are you testing it? Like how's the whole process to make sure that there's certain quality and stuff?
Very, very good question. So there are testing for the code, right? So for that, fortunately, there are a lot of, as you probably everyone who is in the business uses these. There are standardized testing methodology, right? So you run the code through some checks. You make sure that you're checking for everything. I don't know, all your inputs are sanitized, all those things, right? So, and those are pretty standardized. Everything is good. So as I told you, PHP CS, PSOund for backend. Same thing for React, right? So you kind of create your own dedicated scripts for those, like what do you check and everything. Then there is a quality check to make sure that when you test it, the cool thing about the plugin is that it's in the end, it's like a workflow-based plugin. So I do have on our testing environment, I do have like a list of workflows. So these are test workflows. So I know if I run this workflow and it executes fully, with all the things that I know that I have to check for it to show that it executes, then everything is working properly, right?
And
so
you get
then
the results and
exactly. So I know that, okay, I now go and I have a workflow 1 execute, complete, correct, success, that's good. Workflow 2, workflow 3, different things that they test. And then at the end of that, I know that everything is working, right? So I know that everything is working, that the code was clean and nice. I tested it. I tested the new features. It's ready to be released. It usually takes me that last kind of, it's always also for me, I don't know if it is for everyone like that or not, but because I have this bi-weekly release I have for myself, usually the 1 or 2 days to the release, which is usually happens on Sunday evenings, the weekend before a release is always like feels like a marathon to me. Because
it's
okay. For me, it always feels like because the feature is already developed, but I'm going through the testing, bugs come out, and like things that I need to fix and everything. But I also know that I have only 1 day to fix this. But that's how it usually is.
No, but even with normal software companies, I've worked apart from Melapress, I've worked for other software companies. Yeah, usually the last few days it's always a bit of a marathon. As you said, you had a new feature, you've been testing. Usually on the last day, some nasty bug shows up, like, oh, I have to go back test. So but it always feels a bit tense. I wouldn't say stressful, but there's a bit of tension basically.
Yeah, and I always, at this point, I also know that every time I make a release, usually there is something that slipped out and I didn't caught it, right? So and that's why I think it's also pretty common. I've seen that a lot. When there is a major release, there's always a bug fix the day after, and that's kind of also with me, right? So I know that I make a release, and then immediately within a day somebody will send a message saying that, oh, this thing is not working for some reason, and I have to do like a quick kind of patch the day after or something.
I think
but that usually happens.
Most vendors have that. After a major release, you usually a day or two after we have what we call the maintenance update.
Exactly.
So as a non-developer, I mean, as you said, you are familiar with the code, of course. The code is well documented and stuff, but still, someone sends you an email, I have this issue. Like, how do you go about solving the issue? Like finding where it is and helping maybe Claude, like how to find it, where, and how to go about it?
No, love the question. I'm just gonna be very honest with this one. First of all, this is automated for me. When an email comes in with an issue, the email automatically gets processed by Claude for all the database. So what I receive usually is a short summary of what is wrong and what is the issue already identified. So that's kind of the process, right? So it's that's why I'm very happy, because the people who use the plugin are very usually happy, because usually the speed that I answer them for the fixes is very quick. It's that it's actually automated mostly. But what I used to do before was that somebody sends me a question that, okay, this thing is not working, there's a bug, I don't see this or I don't see that. There is so on the settings page of the plugin, I will also show you, there is a button for you to generate a log from the plugin, and the plugin has a very small log file that's constantly like updating. If you want, you can share that log with me, but the log is very human readable, because I was making it for myself. It's not a developer log. It's like if you're my customer and you open the log file, you can actually read it and understand what is happening. Like, where was the error? And the
You can
log,
show us if you want. Don't worry, it's up to you. Yeah. So.
no, I can show you how it's actually pretty. I mean, neat. But I have had an experience of using a lot of even large plugins for WordPress that you don't know what is happening, right? There is no dedicated log. You can find problem if you're techie enough, you have enabled your log, you can go and see what went wrong, probably, or maybe not, like it's a mystery. I have had that experience with plugins that I purchased. And this is kind of one of the reasons it came out from my personal use, that okay, if my user has a problem, first of all, they have the right to understand what is happening. If they open their logs, they need to read it and they need to understand it. Second, when they send it to me, I also want to quickly understand where in the process the problem is, right? And then what I usually do is that I feed it to Claude, that error message that they received, or that part of the log that has the error message. And then what Claude does is that it reads all the kind of relevant files that has relevance to that part of the code, that part of the execution, and it identifies where the issue is probably laying, right? So like, this is probably the issue, or this happened, or etc., etc. And then I fix the bug, a few tests. I first check with that specific customer if that fix kind of fixed their problem. If it did, probably it was for everyone. We keep it, we release it in the next release. That's usually how I approach the bug fixes.
So when you say you fix the bug, you actually write a prompt like, okay, the issue is A, B, C.
The same way that I develop, right? So no. Actually, Claude finds the issue, right? Claude is very good, because this doesn't need like architectural thinking, right? You can just say, look, this is very clearly the issue, because it's very clearly written in the log. This is the clear issue. This is what this is all the big code base that you have access to. Go find it. Like, it's basically go fetch, right? And it goes and fetches the issue for you. It's like, this is the problematic part of the code. It's always like that. Here is the problematic part of the code. It should be this instead of this. I make the change. I test it. We test it with the customer. It's fixed, right? So usually that's how it works with bugs. Yeah.
Have you ever had like more tricky issues, like where you couldn't, and how do you go about it, kind of thing? Like, if for some reason you feed Claude the logs, you cannot find the source of the issue. How do you go about that then?
It happened a lot until earlier this year, where I figured out what the issue is as a core issue, and then I kind of try to mitigate it. I understood. So it happened a lot that a lot of the users would purchase the plugin or download the free version of it and everything, and they would try to execute workflows, and workflows won't execute, or it will fail, or it will keep stuck in executing, or it's something like that. And this never registers in the logs, right? So what is happening is never registered in the logs, because the logs are when things happen, and usually they always happened until a certain point, and then they stopped happening at one point onwards. Then I started kind of digging deep into it, and one by one with different users, I understood, okay, this guy, for example, the website doesn't have enough PHP memory. So it's running out of memory. And then this guy has cron jobs turned off by their hosting provider. And the plugin is very heavy on cron jobs, right? So if you want to schedule a workflow, if you want, some of the executions are planned on a cron. If you receive a webhook, it plans a cron thing. So it's like a lot of things need to work. And then, as you know, probably better than me, a lot of hosting providers turn off cron. I don't know why they do it, to be honest, but they do it, right? And then, for example, that was one of the issues. And then I started understanding a lot of things that are from the hosting providers that have impact on the basic operations of the plugin, and it's out of my control. So that was kind of where I started like kind of realizing that, okay, a lot of issues are coming up that I cannot do. I really cannot do anything about.
You have no control over them.
I have no control over them. What I could do was that I added a kind of a requirement checker system on the settings page that you would go, and it will kind of automatically checks all the requirements and tells you if your instance is ready to operate this plugin at its optimum, or if it is not. And if it is not, what is the issue and what should you do about it, right? So it's already kind of explanatory on like what you should do and everything. That helped a lot. It didn't fix anything in the end, but it kind of helped with customers understanding what's the issue. It's not the plugin that's the issue, it's the hosting provider. And we do have this a lot. We have currently one of my very good customers, they have this installed on, I think, 10, 15 different websites. And they're generating tons of content with it. They're translating all their content, like multiple languages and everything. And one of their sites is on one of these hosting providers in like a separate language, that it just runs out of PHP execution time. And it's not the WordPress PHP execution time, it's the server level PHP execution time. Because we know that it executes until 30 seconds, but sometimes a workflow needs to execute for 40 seconds, especially if you're translating a long text, right? You need to keep executing for 40 seconds until you receive. And they are very frustrated. I am very frustrated. The hosting provider doesn't want to increase the execution time. And that's kind of the things that kind of makes me sad, because it's really one of those limitations of the WordPress ecosystem. A lot of people who are operating sites, their sites are just not made for this, unfortunately.
And it's a good scenario. So how easy would it be for you to update the plugin, to split that process? So usually I don't know.
I did it once. Yeah. No, I did it once. It was a challenge, right? So it took me a few days to create a version, and I will tell you what I did. So instead of creating a PHP execution for this whole process, it kind of broke down that execution, and then it planned cron jobs, right? So it said, okay, this is the first step. Then if it finishes, then second step after cron job. Then I actually shared that with the user. It is clunkier than if you execute it properly. But the problem is that then that user that I had this problem with, the cron system didn't work correctly because of the limitations of the server. So that's the thing. It's not like and then I was like, okay, what is the benefit? What is the pros and cons of this? It's a clunkier execution system. It might work for more people, but still will not work for some people. So let's just stick to the one that is clean and nice and fast and like, I don't know. Just for you to know, I'm not against any hosting providers, but when one of my users asks me what should I do, like I want to, should we do? My answer is always, yeah, I don't know, go create a free WordPress site on AWS. It's free. You own the server. It's fast. I don't know. Like I don't understand why we don't all do this, but this is what I always kind of suggest for people. Like
it's not easy for everyone. I mean, people who have technical understanding, they would easily do it. However, especially as your website grows and functionality, you will end up with someone almost full-time managing that instance kind of thing.
Yeah, true.
So it's also a question of resources. And managed WordPress web hosts, there are different ones. All of them have their pros and cons. I agree. Some of them enable this, some of them disable that. Some of them come with a number of new plugins that crash with other plugins. So it's a bit difficult. But definitely having your own hosted solution is
Yeah,
the best in terms
it
of
is a more
flexibility.
stable solution. Yeah,
The best in terms of flexibility, but yeah, you need the manpower to as it grows, because in the beginning it's okay to maintain that
I
instance.
agree. I
Interesting,
agree.
very, very interesting. So you mentioned earlier that even the emails and all of that is automated as well. You automate also the,
Some of it, not everything. I don't want to automate everything. I want to
of course.
be in contact with people, but some of the more repetitive parts of things that I know that it is repetitive, I have
Mm.
automated it also for myself. So I'm also more comfortable. Content creation for a site,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
sorts of emails, like some sort of those kind of things. It yeah. If I can automate something, I definitely will. In the end, it's almost a one man operation. I do have a very good friend of mine that kind of that was the guy actually who knew WordPress. Like I have a very good friend who has kind of guided me through this process, but he is the one with WordPress knowledge. When I started and I said I want to create a plugin for WordPress, he was like, "But you're crazy. Like this is actually not easy. It's going to be difficult." That was kind of the person who always grounded me on like, okay, what needs to be done and everything. But in the end, almost a one man job, so a lot of things need to be automated. Yeah.
Just curiosity, have you ever had conflicts with other plugins?
One time
Because
there
that's
was.
also a bit difficult, so because it's not
Yeah,
difficult
yeah, that is
on
very
your end.
difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is very difficult. That's very difficult to identify. That's a bit. One time I'm not sure which one it was. I'm not going to name, but it was a translation plugin, and I never understood why there was a conflict with the translation plugin. It was a weird conflict. It didn't. We fixed it. It got fixed. But that was the only conflict that I have ever had. It was just small translation plugin. Yeah.
And just curious, like as a non-developer, how did you go about that? Because you rely heavily. I mean, I know you, of course, with time you understand a bit more the code and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
you still rely
No,
heavily
so
on.
back then I remember what I did. So I understood which plugin it was. I installed it on one of my own test instances. I generated the log file of WordPress. Then I had the log. I knew what is happening with what is conflicting with what. Dug a bit deeper, fixed it, and got fixed. It was not that actually. It was literally a 20-minute thing. It got fixed very very easily, very quickly. Yeah,
Interesting, very
yeah,
interesting.
yeah,
I know you mentioned it briefly, but it's good to kind of like to dive a bit in this subject, security, because of course it's quite a hot topic, especially in fact, we just had David Johnson a few weeks ago. A lot of people are talking about it. You mentioned already that you use PHP code sniffer and you have like the automated processes and stuff like that. Yeah, apart like, do you still because you are when you use these tools, of course, you are covering a lot of ground. I'm not saying you're
yeah,
not, but it's still kind of like automated testing in most cases is not enough kind of thing.
yeah.
Like how do you go about, especially as the plugin grows, scales up, and is being used on more websites? Like how do you ensure the code is secure?
So there are, as you said, there are like the testing parts that is automated, and you can also even, as you know, you can improve your automated testing by kind of guiding it better. But then even on the coding side, when I work with with Claude either or the Claude Code that I use right now, on the coding practices, so there's a whole section in the system prompt on like the coding practices that you need to follow, right? And then so I don't know, always escape all the outputs, always sanitize all the inputs, always validate and this and then do that. So it's always like going on and on. It does it very well. But then another thing is that because I have seen it so much in the operations, and I have seen the issues and everything, when I am also reviewing the code myself, when I'm reading it and I'm understanding what is happening, I can also kind of pinpoint what has not been done, right? Okay, this part and this part and this part. So it's multiple fold. It's the AI having the proper kind of guidelines on how to code and what do I expect from the coding practices themselves. Second, myself as the human reviewer of the code, I will review it and probably I will catch some of the issues. It hasn't happened much. It has happened a few times. But yeah, it's just, for example, if I see where we are using a file make sure the file has blocking direct access, right? I don't know if we need authentication verification on all the pages that have etc etc. So all these things I kind of with my own eye I can identify. Otherwise, other than that, then the automated testing ones, and that's kind of it. And to be very honest with you, I am not a developer. I have not worked as you have worked, but I also know that of course all the other companies that are developing plugins, there's always security bugs and errors coming out. Like it's not like the human people who are also writing code also make the mistakes. So I'm not saying like we cannot say if a human writes code, it's always clean and absolutely great and with no problems. And if an AI writes code, so it's kind of an also argument of okay, we put as many stage gates as possible, and I have tried to do that. Yeah, and until now it has been okay. Yeah.
It's good that you're mentioning this. I'd like to highlight a few important disclaimers. First of all, it's guaranteed there is no 100% secure software out there. There is no software. It's just a question of when issues are found, rather than it doesn't have issues. Secondly, yes, from my experience, not all of them, but most developers, especially experienced ones, have no idea of security. They just write code and stuff like that. So yeah, my question was more especially because there's been a few kind of like incidents in the, like for example, I've seen some page where I forgot exactly the context what it was, but was some form developed with AI, and whenever someone submits the form, email address, for example, and I don't know, some numbers, etc., it was saving them in the HTML and loading the file. So of course, if you
I remember
kind of
I saw that.
mistakes, you know, and because AI doesn't have the kind of like context intelligence, like, oh, this is personal identifiable information, so this shouldn't be shown. And most people have concerns about these things, but no, the disclaimer is most developers usually, especially in experience, don't have an idea of security. So, and what you're mentioning as well, the fact that you mentioned nonce, privilege checks and stuff like that. You also say that yes, even though you are using AI and to automate things, you still have to have a very, very strong understanding and idea of what you're doing. I think that should come with big, like the nuclear sign. Like
I told you, like that's the big sign we need to put on this, right? That's like you need to know what you're doing, even if you're not a programmer.
I need a plugin, you know, like
exactly. Which, I always
and that is the biggest issue, I think, because I know a lot of people. Last time I was speaking to Oliver from Patch Tech, Oliver Sild, and he was telling me when I was at WordCamp, like it's impressive how many people now they are finding, how many websites they are finding with security plugins written with AI. Like, oh, write me a security plugin, kind of like a very quick solution. And in most cases, and this is where the concern comes, they're not doing it like you, as in like it's just people who have absolutely no understanding, no context of what they're doing. They get some PHP file, put it on the website, and in reality, actually, in most cases, instead of securing their website, it's opening security holes. And that's why there's a lot of concerns, because it's kind of like a knife, you know. You can use a knife for a good reason, and you can use a knife for to kill someone. And AI is the same. It's a tool open for everyone, but if you use it wisely, I would say, like what you are doing, and like know exactly what you're doing and try your best to do it. Yeah, of course there will be security issues. Even we had security issues. I mean, like most all vendors.
It always happens. It always happens, right?
It's just
I actually think if you create, I'm not saying I did that, but I actually think if you know what you're doing, for example, you have a professional team and you guys kind of create the perfect workflow for security testing before releasing, I actually think your chances of always releasing a security bug-free software is very high compared to when you use human, because then you have a machine that kind of, it's not only following regex patterns, it's actually understanding the code, right? It's reviewing your code for you every single time, right? So it can actually be extremely powerful if you know what you're doing with it. Like that's the key, right? So that's very important.
In fact, PatchTech themselves have launched I think it's Slim Beta, I'm not sure, but they have some sort of like code auditing, which is assisted by AI, or like mostly done by AI and then assisted, of course, and reviewed by a human. So you said as well, like you are not a developer, but clearly from what you were saying, like how much have you learned, like how much in terms
Oh,
of
a lot.
development?
A lot, a lot, a lot. I have learned so much, and I keep learning more, and it's actually fascinating for me. I told you, I always say I'm a generalist, but I would say I'm a subcategory of generalist. I am more of a builder. I build everything, right? So I was just like, one of my side projects right now, in addition to this, was that I love coffee machines. So I find broken coffee machines and I fix them as a side project, right? So it's like I love making things, whatever it is. If it is code, if it is something mechanical, I love this. And this always coding always was my kind of nemesis, because I wanted to develop so many things and I had the idea for it, but I always had to go find someone, pay them. In the end, it was not what I really looking for, do a revision. And by the time it was finished, I was already tired of the whole thing, right? I was like, no, I'm just too tired of this. So this has been an amazing learning experience for me, because now I really feel like I can do anything if I spend enough time and have the structure for it. It actually works very well, and I have learned a lot, as I said, like right now with React and with PHP, which are the two languages that I kind of daily deal with. I am very good at reading and understanding very quickly. I might not be able to sit down and code myself, but I can very quickly go through, like I can scroll through the code and I can kind of see where the problems might be. Something catches my eye that this is not normal, this shouldn't be here, or something like that. That's kind of something that happens a lot these days. Yeah.
And I think
there's
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Don't worry.
No, I just want, and one of the things that I do recently, which I really love, I can show you right now. This is actually something I wanted to show. Are you familiar with Kiro methodology?
I've heard about it. I'm not familiar, but I've heard
It's
about
like
it.
an Amazon methodology for developing features, right? So on their system, and I was reading about it and I loved it. I think it was such a good idea, and I was like, only if I had like a Kiro methodology for my own system and I could follow that, and I actually built that into the system. So now every time I start with a new feature or one of my old features, when I start developing, the system automatically creates Kiro documentation for that, and I will show you what I mean by that. So let me just, because this is incredible. Like I have had such a great experience with this. So let's say this is the GitHub. So everything is on GitHub also, right? So everything is synced all the time and everything. There's the whole Kiro folder where I have my system templates that I kind of personalize to WordPress. So this is for my Claude agent, right? So how Kiro works is not for me, it's for Claude, right? And then there's a template, there's a requirement template, there's a task template. These are the ones that I made based off of the original Kiro, but they kind of fine-tuned to WordPress. And then on the specs folder, you can see different systems. For example, if I go to ChatNote, I have a design, requirements, and tasks file, right? So before it starts working on the system, it creates these files and then it follows the order. And this is a very good example. Look how it looks like. So it explains everything. This is for me. But I love this because when I'm working on this is the architecture behind my chat system. So now if I want to talk to the system, it understands as much as I understand from the system. So I know it has all the context. What is the technology stack? What are the front-end components? What are the WordPress backend, the AI integration, the main components? So you see, it's like a whole detail of the design. And then we have a whole system requirements of how the chat system should work, user stories, all the user stories of how users will interact with this, what are the acceptance criteria, what are the technical requirements and the architecture, and then we have like tasks of development. So what is the phase 1 of this feature? What's the phase 2 of this feature? What is the phase 3? What is phase 4? So it's like everything is there. And I think for me, more than learning how to type in the code, because for a lot of people, when they say someone is a programmer or not, they have this idea that the person knows how to type in code. And I don't think that's a programmer. I think an actual programmer, a developer, is sometimes who develops, who they understand this whole context of everything. And this has been a great learning for me, like understanding the context of a complex system that we're building. It's been amazing.
Yeah, in fact, that's why it's important. I was going to mention, so most probably you didn't learn more about code only, but also about concepts, security, nonsense, because most people wouldn't know about these things. And to add on your last point, it's true. Like I've worked with programmers where you have to tell them like literally if you could tell them go from A to D, you have to tell them you have to go from A, B, C, D. They cannot figure it out. As you said, there are people who can write code, which is different
Yeah.
than being a developer, where you
Yeah.
can actually have an understanding. Okay, this should be saved here. This
Yeah.
is the way we check it. There's a big difference. In fact, yeah, some developers you have to similar. You have to literally like spoon
It's
feed them.
it's
Yeah,
the it's the mindset. It's I call it the engineering mindset because this thinking, this structured thinking comes with engineering, right? I would say, at least that was my experience. You don't necessarily need to be an engineer to have this, but if you think like this, you think like an engineer. Let's say that's the
Mhm,
thing. And of course, you might be able to write code. You might not be a very good engineer. Like you might
yeah,
not be a problem
exactly.
solver,
Yeah,
right? You
yeah,
might not have the systemic thinking capability. That's a completely different skill set. Yeah.
yeah. And from what we've seen today, clearly it is not like, oh, AI, write me a quick plugin. This is like you've been a whole year now at it, right? And you're still
Yeah.
learning. As you said, you
Yes.
just learned about Kiro, just always fine tuning the system and
Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly.
learning all these
Exactly.
things. I'm sure, like along the way, you've learned about PHP code sniffer. You had to find
Yeah.
out how to
Same way.
make.
Same way. Researching, like how can I check my security better? How can I check against WordPress best practices? Okay, this is what I find online. This is what I find. Okay, how can I implement this in my workflow? How do I do it? All those things. It's just learning,
Yeah.
learning, learning. Yeah.
And that's where you need the engineering mindset because I'm sure you read for everything you research, you've read 20, 30 different opinions, and then you have to make up your own mind like, okay, I think this is the one which makes more sense more than this, or and make take this type of decisions.
Exactly.
No,
This is how I'm going to implement it, or this is not how I'm going to implement it, etc. Yeah.
interesting. Looking back, what's something you wish you'd done differently when building the AI workflow automation plugin?
I probably would have made it for Shopify, not
Okay,
WordPress.
any
That's
reason?
first thing.
Is it a
Um,
commercial reason, or it's more like code
it's
development?
both. It's both. It's both. Shopify, you kind of host your application, so that gives you more. So you kind of avoid those problems about hosting and everything, right? So you provide the same service quality to everyone who wants to use your service, right? So that's a kind of a big thing. So that really is a headache, to be honest, because you never know, right? So you
Mm,
talk to someone, they love your plugin, they download it, they cannot use it, right? And it's beyond their control. They already have their website set up. It's beyond your control. You cannot do anything for them. You just have to say goodbye to each other. Like that's kind of
mm.
painful. So that's kind of the thing. So I will go for another platform that is also a very good CMS. I would go for something like Shopify. Probably that would probably would what I would have done differently. Yeah.
Is it easy if you had to port your plugin to Shopify right now via AI?
I didn't explore it enough. I thought about it a few times. Sorry, I thought about it a few times. I know that in terms of like, because it is very modular, in terms of front end, it's very easy because the front end is reusable. Almost 90% of it is just the same thing. We just reuse it. The back end, it needs to be built again, probably, because now it's all based on WordPress. But it probably will be, and I might probably do it at one point if I have the time and the focus to do it. But that's something. I mean, I love WordPress, and I love the fact that it is so scalable. And I still don't think you can get this much scalability and this much features. Like, it's very raw. It's really you can build anything on WordPress, and that's the
That's the
beauty
beauty
of
of
it. That's the
WordPress.
beauty
No,
of it.
it's
It really gives you this like plain infrastructure for you to imagine what you want to do with this. I was talking a little bit, very, very brief chat with James, who is now director of AI at Automatic,
okay.
about the plugin. And he's very cool. He had a very cool kind of set of AI tools for WordPress, and they got acquired. WPAI they had, and they got acquired. And he was also saying like this is very cool to have built this on WordPress, because it's kind of unexpected. You suddenly see something like that looks like NA10 on WordPress, but it is very cool that you can do anything. But then it is very unfortunate that because it is so distributed, you don't have control over the elements that can affect
Right.
users' experience of what you're doing. Yeah.
Yes. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I mean, like most people know the answer, but what is your prediction in regards to what we call vibe coding? Do you think like it will eventually be like more popular, more people adopt it? Clearly, as you said, you need a certain headspace. You cannot just write me a plugin. You need to have some certain understanding of the context and what you're doing. But have you seen like in a year? Have you seen like improvement yourself since you've been doing it in terms of the quality of code, the way it does things?
Absolutely. Absolutely. To be very honest with you, I actually think within a year or two, a lot of what I was just saying that, oh, be careful, oh, don't do this, and the things that we were just talking about, this is going to get fixed. I actually think we need to all understand what our role will be in that future. In that future, we are all going to be architects. So the sooner you accept your future, you kind of lean into it, the easier time you will have in that future. That then everything is almost done with just a question, right? The same way when Lovable, as I keep saying Lovable because it's the famous one these days, right? So everybody has seen something about Lovable. If you check the first days of Lovable, which was earlier this year, late last year or something like that, I remember their day of launch on Product Hunt, and I used it on the day of launch. I don't know if I can say this. It sucked. I don't know.
It's
Sorry
fine.
if I
I mean,
couldn't say. Yeah, it
that's
sucked. It was horrible as an experience, as a tool. It didn't really do anything correctly, right? And then you see that within a few months, right now, I actually used it again a few days ago just to see how right now, it's so seamless. Like it still kind of makes mistakes, but before, the problem with Lovable, everyone was saying was like, oh, you don't have a backend, it's all a front end. Now you go to Lovable, you connect your Supabase account, it builds the whole backend and the front end for you. So there you go. This is 6 months later. What's going to happen in a year, right? There's this new company, Exponent, I think it's the name. Exponent. Yeah, Exponent. Similar to Lovable. But their focus is more on application, right? So now you can create a mobile app with a prompt, right? It's crazy. So your role is not going to be the guy who prompts without understanding, because that's going to be slop, that's going to be noise, that's going to go away, right? A few years from now, this noise, like this everything, like when internet came, it was full of noise, and then all the noise kind of went around, and then now businesses started forming and everything. The noise will go away. The ones that will be successful are going to be the ones that are led by architects, by someone who can understand what they're doing and kind of extract as much potential as they can from the tool that is given to them. That's what and then I think that there's no real reason, or there's no point in fighting it. There's no point in going around and saying AI is not good for programming. You cannot make good tools with AI. AI is not going to be able to create production ready tools. There's no point in fighting it. Even if it is not good today enough for you, next year it will be. So just embrace it. Like that's yeah.
It's as we discussed on LinkedIn. We posted, in fact,
Exactly. So
there is no.
that we discussed. Yeah.
There was something similar. I remember in the music industry when the whole Napster MP3 thing started. There were some bands which really fought like, "Oh, we want to stop it," but there were bands who embraced it. Like, "Hey, we are an unknown band, and something like this can propel us all around the world and get us heard with an MP3."
I agree. Can I show you something? Because
sure, of course.
we had the discussion, and one part of the discussion that we had on LinkedIn was about content, right? I know that there's this kind of idea in the WordPress industry right now. Oh, like AI content is slop. I agree. AI content is slop, right? But then you don't give yourself the chance to think about what type of AI content is a slop and what. It's literally the same thing with programming that I was telling you, that you need to know what you're doing. With AI content, if you know, I'm going to share with you. I actually understood this. This is one of our customers, right? So they use our tool. This page, I saw the workflow. They made it with our plugin.
Okay.
They didn't style it or anything. This was one plugin shot. It went through one workflow. It researched the web. It created this whole page. It styled it. It created the tables, links, outside, inside, internal links, external links, all this that you see in one. This is high quality content. I read this. It's actually good. Like, I was reading it and it was like, oh, interesting insights. It is. It talks about 61% surge in UK jobs posting requiring AI skills in 2024. This is good quality content. So yes, if you still think about content generation with AI as in ChatGPT, write me an article about AI, that's going to suck. Of course it's going to. It's the same way that you say, ChatGPT, make me a plugin for WordPress. It's not going to work. It's not going to be a good quality thing. It's the same thing. It's just that accept it, learn how to work with it, learn how to extract value from it, and go ahead.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think what makes AI look bad is this idea: write me a plugin, write me an article. Then, of course, it's going to be quite bad. But if you put in the effort, and that's the same like when we see on LinkedIn, our developers are no longer needed. You still need to build something proper. You still need the proper mindset to understand context, to understand how things work, and have that sort of engineering mindset. We've mentioned a couple of things throughout this episode, but before we end it, for others thinking about of building a WordPress plugin or any other software, basically, without development background, what are your top 3 tips?
First, again, learn how to be in the driving seat. So start with the driving seat, and you can augment that with AI, right? So it doesn't mean that you need to go to school to learn. No, if you need to learn something that you feel you don't know to be on that driving seat, use AI to learn that. So this kind of, you can do that even augmented, right? But learn what you need to learn to be in the driving seat, not in the passenger seat of AI, because then you don't know where you are going, right? So that's number 1. Number 2, especially for software projects, always try to do it modular, because modular means contained, right? So you know what's not working, you know how to fix it, you know what's working, you know how to kind of develop on it, right? So the modularity mentality. So don't build something that everything is in a large string connected to each other, because then it's hard to maintain it, it's hard to update it, it's hard to fix it, it's hard to find bugs in it and everything else. And third, always when you work with AI, break down your work to the smallest meaningful possible amount of work. Start from there and then add one by one to it. So for example, for myself, whenever I want to develop a new feature, as you saw, I now create the Kiro thing, but then there are phases in the Kiro thing. And the first phase is always the most basic things, right? Let's get the basics working and then build on it. If you go one shot to your AI and say, build a tool that does a lot of things, it's never going to get there. It's just going to get lost in between, right? So small and then go forward. But that's kind of my 3 things that I always do.
Thanks a lot, Navid. Thanks. I would recommend you drop the coffee machine hobby so you can port to before you have time for that.
So that's another hobby, yeah.
Thanks a lot for sharing all your knowledge. It's really, really interesting. I'm sure people will really enjoy and benefit from this. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for following. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And
thank you so much, Robert, for the invitation. I really enjoyed talking to you, like always.
Always. Thanks a lot. Thanks everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.
Bye-bye.